siddhim astita janakadayaha lokasangraham evapi sampashyan kartum arhasi. Translation. Even kings like Janaka
and others attain the perfectional stage by performance of prescribed duties. Therefore, just for the sake of educating the people in general, you should perform your work.
21. Yajyaracharati tattat evaitaro janaha sayatmanam kurute lokasthalanavartate. Whatever action is performed
by a great man, common men follow in his footsteps, and whatever standard he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues.
Finally, text 22. Ame partasti kartavyam trishu lokeshu kinshana nanaptam avalaptavyam parta eva chakarnani. Translation. O son of Pritha,
there is no work prescribed for me within all the three planetary systems, nor am I in want of anything, nor I have in need to obtain anything, and yet I am engaged in work.
Okay, go back to text 12. I'll make a little comment about the last statement there. 22. Krishna says, although I have no need to work, everything's under my control and it's happening by my will, but still I engage. So no one should claim that they have nothing to do. There's no work for them, because even though there is no work for Krishna, still he acts because he sets the example for others. That's certainly one of the duties or one of the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is he sets the example how they should behave. Anukaranusar. One should follow in the footsteps of the great personalities that he imitated. When Krishna says this, that you should follow, you should act like me, I do my duty, you should do your duty. And that means we should follow that instruction. He doesn't say we should lift Govardhan Hill. He does that, but we can't do that. So we'll go back to 12th verse, 12th text. So we can read the translation.
In charge of the various necessities of life, the demigods, being satisfied by the performance of yajna, sacrifice, supply all necessities to man. But he who enjoys these gifts without offering them to the demigods in return is certainly a thief.
Report.
The demigods are authorized supplying agents on behalf of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. Therefore, they must be satisfied by the performance of prescribed yajnas. In the Vedas, there are different kinds of yajnas prescribed for different kinds of demigods, but all are ultimately offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For one who cannot understand what the Personality of Godhead is, sacrifice to the demigods is recommended. According to the different material qualities of the persons concerned, different types of yajnas are recommended in the Vedas. Worship of different demigods is also on the same basis, namely, according to different qualities. For example, the meat eaters are recommended to worship the goddess Kali, the ghastly form of material nature, and before the goddess the sacrifice of animals is recommended. But for those who are in the mode of goodness, the transcendental worship of Vishnu is recommended. But ultimately, all yajnas are meant for gradual promotion to the transcendental position. For ordinary men, at least 5 yajnas, known as Pancha Mahayajna, are necessary. We should know, however, that all the necessities of life that the human society requires are supplied by the demigod agents of the Lord. No one can manufacture anything. Take, for example, all the eatables of human society. These eatables include grains, fruits, vegetables, milk, sugar, etc. For the persons in the mode of goodness, and also eatables for the non-vegetarians like meats, etc., none of which can be manufactured by men. Then again, take for example, heat, light, water, air, etc.
which are also necessities of life. None of them can be manufactured by the human society. Without the Supreme Lord, there can be no profuse sunlight, moonlight, rainfall, breeze, etc., without which no one can live. Obviously, our life is dependent on supplies from the Lord. Even our manufacturing enterprises, even for our manufacturing enterprises, we require so many raw materials like metal, sulfur, mercury, manganese, and so many essentials, all of which are supplied by the agents of the Lord, with the purpose that we should make proper use of them to keep ourselves fit and healthy for the purpose of self-realization, leading to the ultimate goal of life, namely, liberation from the material struggle for existence. This aim of life is attained by performance of yajnas. If we forget the purpose of human life and simply take supplies from the agents of the Lord for sense gratification and become more and more entangled in material existence, which is not the purpose of creation, certainly we become thieves, and therefore we are punished by the laws of material nature. A society of thieves can never be happy because they have no aim in life. The gross materialists, thieves, have no ultimate goal of life. They are simply directed to sense gratification, nor do they have knowledge how to perform yajnas. Lord Chaitanya, however, inaugurated the easiest performance of yajna, namely the Sankirtan yajna, which can be performed by anyone in the world who accepts the principles of Krishna consciousness. Brihabhanagar Prabhu, would you like to share some ideas or some comments on that?
Yeah, I was thinking of this point. So the point about having no ultimate goal of life, this reminded me of another statement Srila Prabhupada makes in Bhagavad Gita purports, that one who has no ultimate goal, how does he say it? Something like, if you have no ultimate goal of life, then your mind will be disturbed. And I was also just speaking with Krishnendu Prabhu before this about how without proper understanding of Sambandha Jnana, then we can't be happy and peaceful in life. So I'm feeling very grateful for Srila Prabhupada's purports, because I went from a place of being totally ignorant of the ultimate goal of life. And now, at least theoretically, I know the goal of life and trying to work towards it. So, yeah, Prabhu, I'm feeling a great sense of gratitude for Srila Prabhupada, especially to have facilities like this, Rupanuga Vedic College and the Krishna House Project, where I started, where all the facility is there to know the ultimate goal of life, to achieve the ultimate goal of life, and help others do the same, specifically through the Sankirtan Yajna, and how we can all come together. Anyone and everyone can be united around this Sankirtan Yajna, no matter what external differences are there, because we got the same ultimate goal of life. These are a few thoughts, Magadari Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
So I'm in Maya. This is the crux of my problem. I'm in Maya. And I've forgotten my eternal nature as a spiritual being, spiritual Atma. I've forgotten who I am. It's an infectious disease which has plagued me. And so now I've come in contact with this body, this material world, matter, Krishna's inferior energy, which is comprised of Boomer Aponolovayu, Kangmanuburu, Ahankar, yeah, all these things, Ahankar, false ego. So I've forgotten who I am, thinking I'm something else. And in this condition, become dependent on so many things. And demigods are there, my family, my parents. They've done so much austerity to actually raise me, do these things like that. My friends, all these different things, the nation, in here. And, somebody with some knowledge will recognize this and they'll take it as their duty to pay back these debts. Of course, like in the Vedic culture in India, they understand demigods are there. Here in the West, we don't really, so hopefully we have an idea of God, Jesus Christ or something, families there. So, but unfortunately, a lot of people are actually far from that platform as well, so I'm now totally engrossed on the bodily platform, and I'm taking it as my only responsibility in this life. My only goal in this life is actually to satisfy my senses, satisfy my purposes, And like that, one degrades into the most abominable conditions of life, animal species, and even below that. But actually, we know from the Bhagavad Gita what is the goal of life. Swatagati. Vishnu is the goal of life. Keep our eyes on the prize. Keep our eyes on the prize. This is very important. So what is our real occupation? How do we keep our eyes on the prize? Well, we understand that we've been given so many nice concessions. Okay, so I'm very attached to fruitive work. I'm very attached to my senses and my possessions, which I use my intelligence to arrange so all of my possessions serve me and I serve them, and they're the sense objects. They're my sense objects, And so very nice that if we are in this mode, we can offer those things to Krishna, So right now, these things are currently in my possession, but using them to satisfy my senses and my purpose. But I can use them to serve Krishna, Krishna's senses. And that's that's my real purpose. That's the purpose of my soul, is to satisfy Krishna's senses. So that's nice. So what is another concession we've been given is shravanam, hearing. So this is very nice, right? So we hear, and we actually come to the proper conclusion. What is the purpose of my life? So hearing about Krishna. So the mind is very difficult to control. The senses are very difficult to control. This body is a lump of ignorance, a place of ignorance. The senses are paths leading to hell and death, ultimately. So we've been given, in this Krishna consciousness movement, we've been given so many nice concessions, conveniences. It's for our out of love. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came and he practically showed what is Krishna talking about? What am I talking about in the Bhagavad Gita? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna, so he said, what am I actually trying to do? So practically speaking, Sankirtan, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. And like that, the mind becomes easy to control. So we're just hearing about Krishna and performing that sacrificing our senses. So we may be in a position where we don't have so many things, but we do have this body and we have these senses. And still, if I don't have these things, I'll still engage my body and senses in material life, material existence. So, okay, I don't have a car, I don't have a house, I still have these eyes. These eyes want to look at beautiful forms walking by. Ears still want to hear something, even if it's the chirping of the birds, these things. But all of these things, they condition this world, samsara, birth and death, and life after life. So what to do? Well, we should hear about Krishna, and we should chant about Krishna, and we should look at the form of Krishna, you know. So, like yesterday, had an experience where met up with somebody, and he's developing his relationship with the Lord. So the Lord gave him a nice position where, you know, he's freed up from all these external things. But then once that happens, you're still left with the mind. So you have the mind. The mind is in this condition. So next thing, surrender the mind. You have to surrender the mind. These things. So engaging in this process of Krishna consciousness, hearing about Krishna from the devotees, from Krishna himself. And the mind becomes purified. Specifically, if we want to go to Krishna, we should know who he is. We have to know who he is ultimately. How else are we going to go? So we should know who he is. And how do we know who he is? Atashri Krishna Namari, Nabaved Graham Sevan Mukhi Hijivado, so I am Evo Spuradiya. That's right. So Sevan Mukhi Hijivado. So one has to actually use his tongue to vibrate the name, fame, glorious pastimes of the Lord. Preach. So we have to preach. And by preaching, we can get the constant association of the Lord. And in that condition of life, question of any danger being there, any danger, and coming back, taking another body, all these different things, becoming entangled in so much suffering. So we should do this. And like that will be fulfilling our the ultimate goal of life, and we'll be satisfied. Yadma supersedity, the soul, the self will be satisfied. And in that condition, actually, it's very easy to give up material engagements, which cause us suffering and lead to further bondage, bind us in this world, bind us in ignorance. And it's interesting, if you look at the human condition, we've been here and we're in these human bodies. And with the faculties that we've been given in these human bodies, we're able to get a sense of, not just a sense of who we actually are, but we're able to get the full thing. But most people have this sense, So they're doing things like trying to break world records, or maybe they're athletes and they're trying to run faster than, be the fastest man alive, right? Constantly trying to expand beyond the limits of their false ego and the limited body that they've taken. Because deep down we know these things. We say things when somebody leaves this world, we say, he's gone, he's gone, he's gone. So many things. You ask a child to, what are you, where in your body are you? He'll point to his heart or something. Most people have this, it's there. We have a sense. But this knowledge, this sense can be fully developed and fully realized by simply just by engaging our senses in Krishna service, by chanting. It's a very nice concession. So when we do that, we know by practicing this bhakti yoga, which is most powerful limbs of bhakti yoga are this chanting and hearing process, preaching. Then that comes knowledge of Krishna, and with that comes detachment. Gyasa, you have jnana and vairagya. And then if we know Krishna, then everything is there. Everything is there. Knowledge of the self is there. Knowledge of the material world is there. Because there's nothing higher than Krishna. Vidaischa sarvaraham eva vedyaha. So by the Vedas, he is to be known. So he's the goal of knowledge. He's the goal of life. Sacrificing so many things, sacrificing intelligence. Actually, Krishna says that sacrificing the intelligence is even more pleasing to him than sacrificing of material objects or possessions. We sacrifice our intelligence, then the captain of this, the commander of this vessel has been surrendered over, So the mind, everything becomes very nice. Everything's in order now. Everything's in order. So purpose of life is being fulfilled. Krishna is satisfied. All living entities are satisfied. Bhakti, devotional service is all auspicious. So one, Krishna is satisfied because Krishna is the root of all existence. Nityo, what is it? Yeah, Chaitanas Chaitananam, Eko Bahunam Yo Vidadati Gama. So Krishna is the root of all existence. He's the source of all the living entities we see. Nicely put, Sarvagata, that his energy, living entities, there is Tatashta Shakti, his energy spread throughout. It's everywhere. It's what's the word? All pervasive. Sarvagata, all pervasive. Meaning there's living entities everywhere. You know, so many different planetary systems of living entities, so many different universes of living entities. So how do I engage in activities which are supremely beneficial, right? So devotional service, serving Krishna, who's the root of the tree of existence. Then by serving him and satisfying him, all living entities, which are his parts and parcels, become satisfied. You know, so this is nice. And practically, what does that look like? Well, the devotee, because his business is preaching Krishna consciousness, is vibrating his tongue and using his ears and using these possessions, which actually belong to Krishna in Krishna's service. Then the living entities which come in contact with such a devotee, they also get linked up to Krishna, you know, and very nicely they are able to understand what's the purpose of their lives. And that they also get to overcome Maya now, this subduing of their natural existence, their spiritual existence as a spiritual being has been subdued by this illusion, this Maya, this temporary body, this false ego. That becomes purified and they get to enjoy their life in service to Krishna in their natural state, which is Satchidananda. And so this is very nice. I was hearing somebody was saying, don't remember who it was, but somebody was reading, this one we're talking to. He was saying that actually, you know, Krishna's very, when he's responding to Arjuna, when he's dealing with Arjuna, he seems very cold, right? He's no emotion, it's just intelligence, you know. But where's the compassion? As he was asking something like that, where's the compassion? He seems very cold. Even, you know, he pokes fun at Arjuna in some places, or he tries to inspire him by being a little bit blunt, like very blunt and direct. But his speaking the Bhagavad Gita is the highest compassion for the living entities, because he's giving them the topmost knowledge. He's speaking the Bhagavad Gita for everyone's benefit. You know, it's so merciful. We get this knowledge and we can apply our intelligence to it. And like that, our life becomes perfect. Otherwise, I have this intelligence, I have these faculties. I'll just use them to try to become advanced in material life, which basically means you degrade yourself to hell, you know. So, yeah, maybe we can keep reading, pass it around and keep reading. Yeah, it's
Chapter 3, Text 14, Translation. All living bodies subsist on food grains, which are produced from rains. Rains are produced by performance of yagya, and yagya is born of prescribed duties. Purport. Sri Baladev Vidyabhushana, a great commentator on the Bhagavad Gita, writes as follows. Ye indrad yeranga taya vastitam yagyan savishwaram Vishnam abhyachara takchesham ashnati tena tadeya yantram sampadyante teshanta savishwarasya bhakta sarva kilvishyer anadi kala vivridher atmanubhava pratibandhikar Nikilai Papar Vimuchante. The Supreme Lord, who is known as Yagya Purusha, or the personal beneficiary of all sacrifices, is the master of all demigods who serve him as the different limbs of the body serve the whole. Demigods like Indra, Chandra, Varuna, etc. are appointed officers who manage material affairs, and the Vedas direct sacrifices to satisfy these demigods so that they may be pleased to supply air, light, and water sufficiently to produce food grains. When Lord Krishna is worshipped, the demigods, who are different limbs of the Lord, are also automatically worshipped. Therefore, there is no separate need to worship the demigods. For this reason, the devotees of the Lord who are in Krishna consciousness offer food to Krishna and then eat, a process which nourishes the body spiritually. By such action, not only are past sinful reactions in the body vanquished, but the body becomes immunized to all contamination of material nature. When there is an epidemic disease, an antiseptic vaccine protects a person from the attack of such an epidemic. Similarly, food offered to Lord Vishnu and then taken by us makes us sufficiently resistant to material affection. And one who is accustomed to this practice is called a devotee of the Lord. Therefore, a person in Krishna consciousness who eats only food offered to Krishna can counteract all reactions of past material infections, which are impediments to the progress of self-realization. On the other hand, one who does not do so continues to increase the volume of sinful action, and this prepares the next body to resemble hogs and dogs, to suffer the resultant reactions of all sins. The material world is full of contaminations, and one who is immunized by accepting prasadam of the Lord, food offered to Vishnu, is saved from the attack, whereas one who does not do so becomes subject to contamination. Food grains or vegetables are factually eatables. The human being eats different kinds of food grains, vegetables, fruits, etc., and the animals eat the refuse of the food grains and vegetables, grass, plants, etc. Human beings who are accustomed to eating meat and flesh must also depend on the production of vegetation in order to eat the animals. Therefore, ultimately, we have to depend on the production of the field and not on the production of big factories. The field production is due to sufficient rain from the sky, and such rains are controlled by demigods like Indra, sun, moon, etc., and they are all servants of the Lord. The Lord can be satisfied by sacrifices. Therefore, one who cannot perform them will find himself in scarcity. That is a law of nature. Yagya, specifically the Sankirtana Yagya prescribed for this age, must therefore be performed to save us at least from scarcity of food supply.
Regulated activities are prescribed in the Vedas, and the Vedas are directly manifested from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Consequently, the all-pervading transcendence is eternally situated in acts of sacrifice. Yajnartha karma, or the necessity of work for the satisfaction of Krishna only, is more expressly stated in this verse. If we have to work for the satisfaction of the Yana Rusa, Vishnu, then we must find out the direction of work in Brahman, or the transcendental Vedas. The Vedas are therefore codes of working directions. Anything performed without the direction of the Vedas is called vikarma, or unauthorized or sinful work. Therefore, one should always take direction from the Vedas to be saved from the reaction of work, as one has to work in ordinary life by the direction of the state. Similarly, one has to work under direction of the supreme state of the Lord. Such directions in the Vedas are directly manifested from the breathing of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is said, Asya Mahato Bhutasya Nasvitam Itad Yad Ragvido Yasha Vida Samavido Tarvan Gisa. The four Vedas, namely the Rajvita, Yajurvita, Samavita, and Atharvavita are all emanations from the breathing of the great personality of Godhead. The Lord, being omnipotent, can speak by breathing air, as it is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita. For the Lord has the omnipotence to perform through each of his senses the actions of all other senses. In other words, the Lord can speak through his breathing, and he can impregnate by his eyes. In fact, it is said that he glanced over material nature and thus fathered all living entities. After creating or impregnating the conditioned souls into the womb of material nature, he gave his directions in the Vedic wisdom as to how such conditioned souls can return home, back to Godhead. We should always remember that the conditioned souls in material nature are all eager for material enjoyment, but the Vedic directions are so made that one can satisfy one's perverted desires, then return to Godhead, having finished his so-called enjoyment. It is a chance for the conditioned souls to attain liberation. Therefore, the conditioned souls must try to follow the process of jnana by becoming Krishna conscious. Even those who cannot follow the Vedic injunctions may adopt the principles of Krishna consciousness, and that will take the place of performance of Vedic jhanas or karmas.
I wanted to kind of touch base on some of these. So we're hearing the word yagya. This word yagya is sacrifice. So that's what's being discussed here in the 3rd chapter of Gita. Work is not always a yagya, but when it's done for Krishna's pleasure, God's pleasure, then it's called yagya or sacrifice. And that's what we're trying to do is basically the scriptures are there and they're outlining like every aspect of life, health, procreation, marriage, war, temple life, religion, all these things are there, cooking, anything and everything is there in the Vedas. And there's always some prescriptions that are there. And that's how we can know God's mind, like what he prefers. It said that the scriptures are like the mind of God. So the Vedas are very important, like guidebooks. Basically, there's there's some movie like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. We are pretty much marooned or shipwrecked in this material world. And we have some load of karma, which has placed us at this particular time and place within these bodies. And by the will of the laws of nature and our karma, in ordinary circumstances, we meet each other and then we separate by the will, by the force of time. Like we had associates last life, which we no longer associate with now. And it said that it's like twigs that come together and separate on an ocean or on a river while they float down. Maybe some twigs, and then they come and go. So the idea that's presented here is that after Krishna spoke all about the eternality of the soul, and then he gives, kind of some overview of devotional service and in the 2nd chapter, then 3rd chapter, he starts talking about how we're forced to work because the soul is active. So if you with intelligence, you do it, you make your work yoga. Not all work is yoga. Like somebody who has no knowledge of a relationship with God, his work is just karma or vikarma. If it's not in accordance with the scripture, knowingly or unknowingly, that's the problem. Is that even if in this material world we don't know the laws of nature, we still get punished. If we don't know, the punishment is less, which is reasonable, right? If we're innocent, it's reasonable. But if we do know and we still act against the directions of nature, then the punishment is more, which is also reasonable. But that type of work is not yoga. But when we hear from Krishna, like Bhakti Radha Damodar was mentioning, that we have the ability to do shravanam or hear about Krishna and what Krishna says, then, in the Vedas and in Bhagavad Gita, he's personally speaking. These are his words, makes it extra special. And he says, okay, do your work, right? The regulated work that's in the scriptures, do that, but do that to satisfy me. And so that's what we're looking at. And that's called karma yoga. Yoga means to link. There's a word like yoke, to yoke two bulls together or two oxen. There's like that piece of wood which connects their necks, and they can work together as a team. That word yoke is kind of a derivative from this yoga. It means union, to connect. So this karma yoga means connect with God, connect with Krishna. Real yoga means God. Nowadays yoga means so many things, but God's not a part of it. Can really be said to be yoga, though it's a beginning. It's tending towards the real thing. And that's why we're so fortunate, because we have this work to do, to share this knowledge, to give people like, oh, there's a person who's like the supreme person, and he's basically trying to rescue us back from this material world, come back to him. And he gives the Vedas, which are like amazingly interesting books. So anyway, the idea is to perform specifically what's being mentioned in these two purports is that if you focus on Krishna, or the supreme personality of Godhead, God the Father, like that, right? The big man, then you don't have to worry about satisfying all the other powerful beings. Just like the sun is giving us warmth, and we owe him an energy bill. We got to pay for that. And as human beings, we have to. Animals and the other species of life, they don't have karma like we do. So in the Vedas, Krishna describes that humans have to do these types of offerings to the sun and to the moon and certain religious functions, which, coming from the West, it kind of seems strange. But as was spoken in one of the purports earlier, we need these things to live. It's like, if we didn't have sun, there'd be no grass. If there's no grass, there's no question of any meat. If we don't have grains, there's no question of eating, anything. Whereas like, there's no cow's milk, there's no grains to eat. I can't eat rocks. So we need the sun, we need the moon to give life to vegetables. So it's only reasonable that we kind of pay something back to them. And this is the whole reason why it's a little bit tricky, this modern scientific perspective where everything is just chemicals. Because if everything is just chemicals, I don't owe anybody. And that starts the living entity completely off wrong, because he's feeling like, I got a free ride. It's just me and the energy. It's me and the atoms. They're my atoms. That's the problem. They're just atoms. They don't have feelings. They don't have You know, we don't have like a sense of responsibility or duty towards just atoms, nature, you know, because it's not personal. And that's why this is so wonderful, this personal philosophy from the Vedas. Everything is personal in the Vedas. The rivers, the moon, the sun. We can understand actually there is a personality which Krishna or God has empowered to actually control those things. And it's their karma to be a big, to be like a big leader, like the sun or the moon. It's their karma to like play that role. And that's our karma right now to be on this little earth planet, you know? So we're fortunate that the Vedas describe things in a personal way and tell us who is that supreme person who is the cause of all causes. Sarva Karana Karanam. Sarva Karana Karanam. He's the cause of all the causes. There's immediate causes, like you can say, I'm getting my food because of the sun, right? Because of nature. But whose nature is it? Who created nature? Who's in control of nature? Krishna says, Maya Dyakshana Prakriti. I'm actually the superintendent of nature. It's my nature. So then we can, with that little bit of knowledge, then we can start to develop a little devotion. That little bit of devotional attitude or gratitude is the key towards liberation or becoming free from the cycle of birth and death and all the problems which are incumbent with this material life. Right now, all of us in this room, well, there's other people in this room too, but those of us here, we're all in young bodies, but they won't be young forever. So right now, we literally think that life is amazing. This material life is completely amazing. It really is. I can do this and I can do that. Yes, for some time, according to your karma, we can do. But if a wise person will hear and see, just like the Buddha was a young man, prince's body, unlimited women. He was unlimited wealth, unlimited name, fame. But he snuck out of the kingdom and he saw suffering. He saw suffering. And he was wise. That's why he calls Buddha. Buddha means intelligent. He thought, just time is separating me from all of this. Only time. Let's fast forward it just a little bit. I'll be suffering like everyone else. I'll lose all my wealth. All my wives will also become old. There'll be no more enjoyment that way. My body won't even work. So what's the question of enjoyment? I'll get diseased, right? Eventually I'll die and I'll have to leave everything. So the Buddha, intelligent person, they start making solutions to the problems now while they still have intelligence, strength, vigor, bodily luster, so many things. They can think clearly and they can start to devote themselves towards the cause of all causes, right? They start working to satisfy him. And when they do that, automatically they're satisfied. Automatically they're satisfied because the whole universe is working on that scheme. He already said, all you great demigods, you favor anybody who serves me as a rule. So there's no question of having enjoyment, power, all the wonderful things that we want without God. If we serve God, there's only success. These are some thoughts. And yeah, any questions or any other comments? I know I took the time left. You have something? Did you have something? Yeah.
I think what resonated we were just having a conversation talking about how you can apply this kind of work to whatever it is that you're doing in your life. And I've recently started to get into being a musician and an artist. And it's really cool to know that I can apply everything I'm learning here to that and start to spread that message through my music. And you're talking about how you can, whatever it is you're doing, you can turn that into devotional service. And that was something that really resonated with me. And that was something we were literally just talking about. So I thought that was really interesting.
Well, I was thinking this is cool because when Luke first got here, we were talking about the Buddha. And this is very auspicious that this came up because yeah, because actually we don't really talk about the Buddha ever. This is like the first time in my 2 years that I've heard about the Buddha. So this is auspicious. But I also like the comment, Pooh, that you made where you said yoga means to link with God. God has to be there. But currently the yoga that's being advertised now, at least in the West, even in India, all over the world, there's God's not there. But if God's not there, then that means that they're linking with something, which is basically the body, the mind, senses, false ego, like that. And in that condition, yeah, they're just developing for their bodies, implicating themselves further and further in the material world. And then, who said, birth, death, old age, disease is there. That's the result. And attachment to temporary pleasures. But then at the time of death, when those things are taken away, what to do? We haven't prepared ourselves, but we've prepared ourselves to take another body. Try again. Keep suffering in this world. But if God is there, then that's the duty. That's our duty, is actually to become educated in the Vedic knowledge, teaching us what's the difference between spirit and matter. Who's God, all of these things. And like that, I can prepare myself to attain, the spiritual kingdom and go back to Godhead. So I just like that comment. Thank you.
I think it was when Damodar was talking about using your intelligence for Krishna. It reminded me of how I've been doing a lot of preaching, and it's so ridiculously purifying. And I noticed that maybe all the material desires that you had, yearnings you had before preaching, before even practicing bhakti yoga, if you surrender from them, have some humility away from them, and just serve a little bit, take on a little bit of bhakti yoga, I noticed that those past yearnings have purified, and I don't even meditate on them anymore. And then I noticed, like, over time, Krishna has, like, mercifully, like, gifted versions of these material yearnings I had in a much more purified way, and a spiritualized way, really. So maybe it could be like, oh no, I have no friends, this or this or that, this or this and that. And now it's like, here's an abundance of like spiritual association and things like this. So it's always worth it giving just like a tiny bit of your intelligence for Krishna. Do some little austerity for Krishna, and he gives so much more back.
Sure.
Yeah, that's it.